Thank you. The December 22nd meeting of the zoning board will come to order. We will stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Roll call, please.
Absolutely. Mrs. McFarland.
Here.
Mrs. Cluley.
Here.
Mrs. Esky.
Here.
Mr. Borai.
Here.
Mr. Hart.
Here.
We also have Mr. McLennan and Mr. Mrzinski here.
Okay. Who wants to read the zoning statement? All right, I'll read it tonight. The zoning hearing board will give all interested parties an opportunity to ask questions and testify in connection with the application being heard tonight. After a witness for the applicant completes testimony, you will be given an opportunity to ask questions of that witness. In addition, after an applicant has completed its case, you will also be given an opportunity to testify, which will require you to be sworn in as a witness. If you wish to participate in the hearing on an application, you should complete the entry of appearance form, which will be provided to you by the zoning officer, who is sitting at the table next to the court reporter. We ask your cooperation in maintaining silence during the hearings so that both the board and the court reporter can hear the testimony of the witnesses. We also ask that all cell phones be turned off. Okay. We have one item on the agenda tonight. Who would like to read it? Bob? He turned around and looked at me. That'll teach
I'm
you.
up. I should know better. The one item tonight is Z-14-22, Shea Trooper LP, 2713 Easton Road, Suite 1A, Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, 19090. The applicant is requesting a variance from Ridge Pike Business Zoning District Standards, Section 143-262, point E, to permit the development of a Dunkin' Donuts restaurant. The existing impervious coverage of 95% exceeds code and will be reduced to proposed coverage of approximately 73.5%, which also exceeds code. The code standard is 50%. The parcel ID number of subject property is 43-00-11476-001. Subject property is located at 2600 West Ridge Pike, Lower Providence Township, and is in the RBP, Ridge Pike Business District.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Solicitor?
Hello, Mr. Weiner, how are you?
Good evening.
Good to see you, and good to see you're here and without the Ed Mullen School of Dress tonight. It's good to see from, and you can tell it, I said that as a little joke.
No best.
We're here on, is it Shea, I guess is how you say it? Or is it Shia, or how do you pronounce it? Shia, Trooper LP. And Carl, you're a seasoned member of the bar. It's a nice way of saying that you're old.
Yeah, thanks.
So you know how this works.
Look who's talking.
And from that perspective, you can obviously have an opening. You can bypass that. You can introduce your witness. But you know that the court reporter is here, so she needs to hear you testify. You speak, and your witnesses testify, and your witnesses are, in essence, encouraged to do so, as opposed to gesturing or nodding or winking or anything of the sort. So I have a tendency to speak quickly. Paula doesn't like that, and I don't blame her. So we should certainly go as slowly as possibly fitting for us, as opposed to really slow. Then we'll all fall asleep on you. So without more, you're welcome to present your case.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McLennan. Good evening, members of the board. Carl Wiener representing the applicant. Just to give you a brief overview before we get into the testimony, the property that is subject to this hearing tonight is located at Ridge Pike and Trooper Road. It is zoned Ridge Pike Business District, consists of approximately half an acre. Property was formerly the Luke Oil gas station. The canopy has been removed and pumps have been removed from that site. The small building where the cashier was located is still remaining on the site. The applicant is proposing to totally redevelop this property into a Dunkin' Donuts. And the course of that redevelopment will actually make several improvements to the property. One is that there will be a better traffic flow on the property. Second is that there will actually be reduced curb cuts on the property, fewer curb cuts at the corner of Ridge and Trooper. We are actually adding stormwater controls, which are not there presently. We're adding landscaping, which is not there presently. So overall, it is going to be a better site for the community. Although the impervious coverage is going to be reduced from an existing 95% down to 73.5, we still need relief from the board because we are over the base amount of 50%, which is permitted in this district. You will hear our engineer testify that actually we meet a few criteria that are under Section 262 of the ordinance that actually get us up to a 70% standard. So actually the amount of variance may be less than appears from just the 50% up to 73. We may actually be talking about 70 up to 73.5. But either way, it is substantially less impervious than we have now. Our witness this evening will be Ralph Graff, who has been the project engineer, and will review the details of what the existing site looks like and also what we propose to do on the property. So with that background, I will call Ralph to be sworn in.
My full name is Rolf, R-O-L-P-H. Last name is Graff, G-R-A-F. I do.
What's the best place for Ralph to sit so you can sit right here? So you, okay. Here. All right. So sit here. Okay. Mr. Graff, what is your occupation?
I am a licensed civil engineer in the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay. And how many years have you been doing this?
I've been doing it since 1987, been a licensed engineer since 1992.
Okay. What's your educational background?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Engineering from the Pennsylvania State University in 1986.
And are you a member of any professional organizations?
The American Society of Civil Engineers, the Pennsylvania Society of Civil Engineers, all the good civil engineering.
Okay. And I assume you've previously worked on similar commercial projects?
Correct. I've worked on gas stations, convenience stores, Wawas. In fact, my firm did the Wawa and Citadel Bank development opposite Trooper Road over in West Norton Township.
And you've qualified as an expert witness for a municipal body or court of law, is that correct?
I have.
Okay, and we'll show you. This. Mark is Exhibit A1. Yes, and this is your resume, which is a summary of your educational and work experience that you've just testified to. Is that correct?
Correct, it is.
Okay. And I move to have Mr. Graff qualified as an expert in civil engineering.
Any questions of the board?
Okay.
Messenger, do you have any questions?
Yes, I will.
Anyone in the audience who has an interest in this have any questions for the expert? Just now on the qualifications issue, come on up and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Anthony Santangelo, partial owner of 11 South Trooper Road, also known as Germantown Title Company. I don't know if the applicant realizes it, but from 7 to 9 this morning, there were 54 cars that made a right out of Wawa.
Sorry, Mr. Attendant, we're just talking now about the qualification of this gentleman as an expert. You want to have a...
Oh, I'm sorry.
You'll have a chance to talk about
Sure,
that,
his-
certainly.
His credentials are great.
Okay, great, thanks. Sorry to cut you off, I just didn't want to get out of sequence here.
They called the cops that you were speeding or something.
So he's been qualified, are we good with that? Okay.
There's no objection.
Okay. Mr. Graff, you're familiar with the property subject to this application, is that correct?
I am, yes.
Okay, and I'm going to show you what I'm marking Exhibit A2, and I just have a couple copies of that. One, two, solicited. And this is the agreement of sale between the applicant and the current owner of the property, Luke Oil, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and this agreement of sale is still in force, is that correct?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Okay. And can you please describe, we'll refer to as Exhibit A3, the plan which is up before the board. Please describe the existing site.
Sure. As Mr. Weiner has already stated, we have the property located at the intersection of Trooper Road with Ridge Pike. It is the northwest intersection. Thank you. So the property consists of approximately a half acre. I believe it's 0.51 acres after giving up the ultimate right-of-way along both streets. That is, the property right now goes to more or less the edge of the street. Once you give up the ultimate right-of-way along both streets, it shrinks the property considerably because we are a corner lot. As Carl stated, we are at the intersection of Trooper and Ridge Pike. We are located in the Ridge Pike Business District zoning, which allows commercial uses. The property right now is not being used. It was an abandoned gas station. So it looks like a gas station that was built in the 1950s or 1960s. There are multiple curb cuts along Ridge Pike and Trooper Road. Both streets have two curb cuts where people can come off of or enter back onto the roadway. And then the site itself is virtually paved in its entirety in either stone or some version of blacktop. And that blacktop goes up pretty much to the existing edge of road. There are some small green patches along the existing streets, but the site overall is impervious. It is a little bit higher in relation to Trooper Road than it is to Ridge Pike, but other than that, there are some existing utility connections, but most of the other facilities, the tanks that were out there and the building that was out there have been removed.
And the existing impervious coverage is how much?
The existing impervious coverage is approximately 95%. Again, there's some small pockets of green area that are out there, but the site is virtually paved in its entirety.
Okay. And the fact that this is a corner lot, how does that impact on the measurement of impervious coverage?
What happens with the corner lot is you are, with the dedication of ultimate right-of-way, on a corner lot, you have two front yards. Both street frontages require additional ultimate right-of-way. So that takes away space. Your impervious cover calculations are based on net area. Gross area is what is out there today. Net area is what will remain after the ultimate right-of-way is dedicated. So the property becomes smaller, but it becomes smaller much quicker than a standard interior lot because we do have the two frontages.
And please describe for the board what is proposed to be developed on this site.
The proposed development is for a Dunkin' Donuts retail store. The building is a little bit under 1,800 square feet, so it's approximately 30 feet, 5 feet wide when looking at it from Trooper Road and approximately 50 feet deep. So that would be the footprint. In addition to the building itself, there's going to be concrete sidewalk around it, some green space, and then we have the required parking, the drive aisles, and we have a drive-through lane along the back being the side opposite Ridge Pike. We have two access points proposed. There's an access point on Ridge Pike, and there's also an access point on Trooper Road. Each access point is a reduction in what's out there today. Currently, there are access points closer to the intersection on both Ridge and Trooper. What we've done is we've moved those 2 points as far away from that existing intersection as possible on the property. They are more conventional entrances. Each one is 30 feet wide as opposed to the gas station entrances that are there now, which are much wider. So this gives everybody a defined point to enter and exit the property. We do have the majority of perpendicular parking spaces facing Ridge Pike. There is a handicap parking and a standard parking along the side of the building. We have 2 parallel parking spaces along the back, 2 in the front, and then we have stacking for, I believe, 8 vehicles, which is what's required by your ordinance. The proposed parking does comply with your ordinance. We are required to provide for 18 parking spaces, and that's what's shown on this plan. In addition to that, we do have the green areas around the perimeter between the parking and the streets. You can see that there's quite a bit of green area being created that will be landscaped in compliance with your ordinance.
And how will stormwater be controlled on this property?
We have not gotten into the land development design. The low point on the site is along Trooper Road, so there will be some kind of underground detention facility that will help with stormwater management. The additional green areas around the perimeter will help with water quality. Again, there's a significant reduction in impervious coverage from 95% to 73%. That alone promotes certain water quality benefits that, without doing anything else to control the rate of stormwater, is a major benefit. And then we would connect to some kind of piping system there's piping in Trooper Road. Everything that we do have shown here, I should point out, is based on an actual field survey. We did go out and survey this property, so we know exactly what's out there. I've been out there a number of times, have met with members of staff, so we're very, very familiar with how the property works and where everything flows.
So the proposed site will comply with parking, setbacks, landscaping, all aspects of the zoning ordinance, except for impervious coverage, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in terms of impervious coverage, the applicant is seeking relief under section 262E to permit maximum impervious coverage of 73.5%, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what is the applicable impervious coverage requirement?
The way the ordinance reads is there's a straight impervious cover of 50%. However, there's a section that is 143-262E that allows, there are 5 situations, and if you can meet 3 of the 5, you're allowed an increase in impervious cover up to 70%. And they deal with, the first one, for example, is providing an interconnect with an adjoining property. We've shown that there's an existing interconnect with the adjoining restaurant property, and our proposal is to continue that interconnect. So that meets one of those tests. The others deal with landscaping along the frontage and the building facade. They are the other 2 out of the 5 that we meet. So we believe we qualify actually for 70% impervious coverage on this site, but we are still at 73.5%, which is over.
And is it reasonably feasible to further reduce the impervious coverage on this site and still comply with all the other zoning requirements?
No, by reducing it, the only way that we could reduce impervious cover would be by shrinking drive aisles, reducing parking spaces. They are also all ordinance-driven, zoning ordinance-driven. So in complying with backup areas behind parking spaces, parking stall size, which is defined in your zoning ordinance, number of parking spaces, all of those provisions that also govern, in complying with them, the least impact we believed was the 3.5% increase in impervious cover.
What process has this plan been through with the township so far?
The plan has gone through a text amendment for the Ridge Pike Business District. It did not initially allow drive-throughs. So that text amendment was done, and then the use itself is permitted by conditional use. So we've gone through the conditional use process, and that has also been approved.
Okay. And if the board sees fit to grant relief, this project will then go through the land development process?
Yes,
correct?
we still need to go through the full land development in front of the Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, deal with stormwater management, traffic issues, those type of things.
Okay. Can you please describe to the board the properties that surround this parcel?
On our side of the street, what I'll call the lower part or the southwest property is an existing business, a title company. Along the northwest side of us, along Ridge Pike, is a restaurant. And then across Ridge Pike is an existing gas station, and across Trooper Road is the recently built Citadel Bank, Wawa, and then there's a small retail building that's currently going in right now.
Will the proposed variance of relating to impervious coverage have any adverse impact on any of the surrounding properties?
No, I do not believe there will be any adverse impact. I believe this will be an enhancement and betterment of this corner property.
No further questions.
Okay.
Questions from the board?
I have a question about the interconnecting driveway to the restaurant.
Yes.
Is that going to look like it goes straight through to Trooper Road, or is that just empty into the parking lot?
No, it would from the adjoining property into us would be a 25-foot wide lane, which is a standard access drive. And then it basically takes you into a one-way bypass lane that's going around the stacking for the drive-through. So you would be forced to enter that one-way lane, and that ends up taking you to the right towards Trooper Road.
Okay.
So it's one way along Trooper. When you come in off of Trooper, you can only go to the right. You cannot go this way. Once you're in this area along Ridge Pike, that is all two-way traffic. So people coming in off of Ridge can go park, come back out, and then leave through Ridge again. But anybody coming in through Trooper either has to leave through Ridge or go around the building and come back out through Trooper.
How, is there a lot of footage taken from the Trooper Road side in that, shown in that?
As far as that ultimate right-of-way that
Right.
we described, yeah, because it's, there was already some right-of-way taken, but where I have the red now, that's the new line, and the existing line is over here. So it's about a 20-foot additional taking along this part of Trooper Road. Down here, it's not as bad because there was some prior taking. I'm not sure what that was from, but this is only about 5 feet, whereas this is closer to 20. And then up along Ridge, I think it's about 10 feet additional of ultimate right-of-way from what's there today. We did meet with the township traffic engineer to talk about potential improvements for Ridge Pike. It's very dependent on what's happening over on the other side of Ridge Pike. There's not a whole lot of room for additional widening. Although we could physically do it here, it doesn't take you anywhere on the other side of the street.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Bob?
I'm just following up a bit on the conditions. You mentioned that you're going to have the driveway through to the restaurant.
The interconnect?
Have you discussed that with the restaurant at all? Is that something which they are eager to do, acceptant of?
We have not discussed it with them. The existing connection is actually part of an agreement, so there is the right to have this there. We thought it was something that everybody would be in favor of because it gives you another way for people in here to maybe use an access point over here even further to the intersection. So because it's there now, we continued it, and it seemed to be encouraged by the ordinance.
Also, the restaurant would have, people using the restaurant would obviously have the ability to get right to Trooper Road.
So under this new Ridge Pike Business District ordinance, you're qualifying that the three conditions you're trying to satisfy are basically 1, 4, and 5? Would that be correct?
One was building facade.
I think it's 1, 3, and 4.
Yeah, 1, 3, and 4.
Okay, you are
Exactly.
putting the trees, I'm sorry.
Correct.
Well, this diagram is much better than the one that we had attached to the application. It's color, you can see that they have the landscaping spelled out there.
Any more?
No, I was just trying to think, and again, it's hard on that diagram to think where you could scratch out another 3.5%, but I assume that you've been over that pretty closely.
didn't want to be here, nothing personal. So we did look at every avenue. We even looked at reducing the entrances, but again, the traffic engineer felt that the 30-foot entrance was important to get people off of both Ridge and Trooper.
Right.
That's really what set us over. With a 25-foot entrance, that's how tight we are. With two 25-foot entrances as opposed to 30, we're okay. But to provide the 30-foot wide entrance, which I agree is a good idea, it's that close.
Yeah, no, safety has to come first.
Yes.
Okay, that's it for me.
I had trouble reading. How many feet do you have frontage on both? What's the dimension, please? I couldn't read it on what we have.
The frontage along Ridge Pike, well, the right-of-way is 129 feet, but it doesn't go into the curve. So it's about 150 feet along Ridge Pike, and it's very similar along Trooper Road. We do have a little kink in the back of the building line, which kind of adds to that uniqueness of the property shape again. But for the most part, it's about 150 feet by 150 feet.
Okay. And then landscaping, can you describe to me what's there? Because will those trees block line of sight for turns, or are they shrubs? Are they low shrubs?
No, we have street trees shown along the frontages, but they're pulled back enough that when you look at clear sight triangles, they should not be an issue. And again, these are just conceptual. We're going to have to go
I
through and
understand
refine
that.
these
Right,
as
but I
part
was
of
just
the
trying
land
to,
development
again,
process.
identify what was there.
But what we're showing is essentially street trees along the frontage, and then we envision smaller, more flowering type trees along the sides, and then supplementing within some of the islands, and then we were going to put in an evergreen buffer along the rear.
Obviously, we didn't get to signage yet. That'll be down the road. I understand that.
Correct.
Is it possible, and this, you're the engineer, for any of the parking spaces to not be paved? Would that, have you looked at that? In other words, there are different types of materials nowadays. I just came from the West Coast, and they have very interesting materials out there, so they can get as much groundwater as possible.
And what you'll hear a lot about is porous paving,
Right.
and porous paving can be used under certain situations. In Montgomery and Bucks County especially, we have such clay-based soils that even if you have porous paving and you get it into the ground, it doesn't go anywhere because the soil doesn't absorb it. So that's one of the major precursors, in my opinion, to using porous paving. But even that, porous paving is really still defined as being impervious cover. Gravel, for example, is still defined as impervious cover because it's not grass, it's not meadow. It still impedes water from getting through. But we'll certainly look at those when we have to go through the
I was just
approval
curious.
process. Yeah.
Seattle is way ahead of us in many ways.
Yeah, and porous paving is, again, great if you have soil that can absorb that water.
Exactly. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Graff, you mentioned that the tanks were removed from the service center.
That's my understanding, yes.
Is an EPA study done?
There was a study done, Darshan would probably be more familiar with it, but we've done phase 1 environmental and have come back with the property being viable.
There's not too many gas stations I have faith in. We've had quite a few in this township that we didn't, way before my time moving here 47 years ago, there's still gas stations and there's still contaminated ground.
Right.
That's the reason why I'm asking you, because I wouldn't want a Dunkin' Donuts sitting on something that's contaminated and coming up through the donuts.
And nor will we be able to.
It wouldn't taste too good, would it?
No, sir.
The other thing is you could have killed two birds with one stone and come in with your signage too. What kind of signage you gonna have on this property?
Well,
That-
we
that
have
falls
not-
under- that
We
falls
have not
under-
put together the full sign package yet, but our intent is to comply with the ordinance when it comes to the signage.
Okay. Now, my other question, you mentioned you were the engineer on the Wawa and the bank.
Correct.
Were you part of the driveway coming out of onto the Trooper Road?
We did the land development drawings, yes.
'Cause
We
me
have
and
the
my-
traffic
me
engineer.
and my wife almost got killed there the other day, making a turn in front of Dunkin' Donuts going down Trooper Road, and some idiot come flying out of there behind a truck and almost wiped us both out. And you know, both these driveways do not meet. This driveway here that you have coming out of Dunkin' Donuts does not meet the one coming out of Wawa or the bank.
No, the Wawa is,
It sits up higher.
no, it's actually way down here.
Yeah.
It's about 150 feet down further.
So you're gonna have somebody coming out of here fighting somebody coming out of here. Now, you remember whether or not you can make a left-hand turn out of there?
Out of the one across the street?
Yeah.
No, left turns are restricted during certain times of the day, is my
Well,
recollection.
that's the guy that almost creamed me, was a left turn. And it wasn't a pretty picture because Mommy almost went through the windshield even with her seatbelt on. And I was only doing 30 miles an hour, I think. What else do I have here? Oh, I do have something here. I want to ask you something, and Carl, maybe you can answer this. On the application, I know I'm jumping around like a jackrabbit, but on the application, on the applicant is Christine Pinizzo.
Pianzio.
Pinozio. Now, she's a member of your firm?
Yes.
Now, is she going to be responsible for everything that's on this paper? Or are you going to have the actual buyer sign this paper? Because if the buyer's here, I brought you a blank sheet to make it a legal document. I didn't know that,
Sure, the things, well, first of all, the owner is here, but I'm not sure what you're asking.
well, what I'm saying to you is on the application that you spent $2,000 to come before this board on, it says Shala Trooper LP.
Right.
Now, is that the owner? Is that the owner's name?
No, it's
That's the firm.
LP, it's a limited partnership.
That's a
So
partnership,
it's a name of the
okay.
limited partnership.
But on the last page, you have on here 1126 that one of the persons that in your firm signed it as the attorney for the applicant.
Right.
I think that the owner's name should be on that form. Am I correct, Mr.?
Okay, well, the owner is a matter of record, is Luke Oil, you know.
Well, I think what he's
I'm
getting
not
at
talking
is
about
that
on the
Shea
app-
LP hasn't signed the document, only
the
Kristen signed
application.
it. That's-
Okay,
On the application. I mean,
Okay.
it's nice to have your lawyer sign it, but that's not telling me who the applicant is. I know she's not the applicant,
correct,
correct?
correct.
So I have another form here you're welcome to take back and make
Fine,
sure.
we
Mike-
have the representative of the applicant here, so we can have that person
Then you
sign.
can give Michael the form, and then the form will be okay with me. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that's the way I feel.
Oh, you said Luke Oil is still the owner, so you've not settled?
I'm sorry?
They have not settled on this property? It's all
No, they
subject
have
to
not.
all?
No, that's why I showed the agreement of sales. They are the equitable owner.
Right, okay.
So the purchase of the property will be contingent upon getting all the necessary approvals.
Right, and to back up what Tom's saying, there is a part here that says on the application that if the applicant is not the owner should supply a letter agreeing to all of this. So it's just a housekeeping thing?
Yeah, I do am aware that's on there, but under the municipality's planning code, which covers all zoning matters, equitable owner, the person who is under an agreement of sale is by definition considered to be a landowner. So I know that's on there, but the NPC does allow applications by the equitable owner of the property.
But we've been asking all applicants to do that. So if it's not too difficult.
Okay.
I have the agreement of sale, so.
Okay, yeah.
That's my
why-
copy,
That's why
correct?
we submitted the agreement of sale, proof that we are the equitable owner.
I have a couple more questions, but I don't think it involves Mr. Graff. Do you want me to ask him now, Carl?
I'm sorry, who?
I said I have a couple more questions, but it doesn't affect, or it doesn't go to Mr. Graff. It's just something I have in the back of my mind.
I think you should just wait. Are you gonna have another witness?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
If the
Then-
audience.
Well, yeah, what I'd like to ask is, the applicant is Charlotte Trooper LP.
Mhm.
Can you tell me who owns the Dunkin' Donuts at Trax Corner? Is that the same company, the same LP? There's a Dunkin' Donuts in our township. It's at Trax Corner, and it sits at Trooper Road and Egypt Road, right on the corner. Is that the same owner?
Well, yes, I don't own it personally, but my parents do own it. It's something.
well, why don't you come on, why don't you
Yes,
come on
why
up?
don't we have you
Sorry.
sworn in?
Sorry. We're gonna recruit you as a witness.
You're gonna have to,
And then Paul is gonna have to,
Darshan Patel, D-A-R-S-H-A-N, A-R-S-H-A-N, Patel, P-A-T-E-L. So
all right, my question would be, if you're gonna build this beautiful building on the corner there, what are you gonna do with the building next to the tailor shop? Are you gonna keep that there? Is that still gonna be, in-
Yeah, so one of the things that we were actually thinking about keeping it there. It is a money question, so it depends a lot on, how much business this does. Will it affect the business over there? Because that area does have a lot of draw from the Shannondale in the back. So we have business coming from there and also the commercial areas near there. So it could still be a very viable store for us, and we may keep both. We do have this coming year, we're gonna be actually remodeling that whole store to make it look a lot better than it is. So there are some improvements we're doing, but, it is a question about financial break even. And whether, this store will impact that store significantly, and if they can coexist. We'd love to keep them both. I think it works out for us because the store is small enough, we can actually keep both of them. If it was a larger store, we'd probably have to relocate it. But if it's a small store, we can think about keeping both of them.
well, my question isn't so that we want you out of there. My question is, I didn't wanna see an empty store. We got enough empty stores in Lower Providence now.
Right,
So what you're saying makes sense. If you're gonna keep it there, that's fine.
right,
I didn't wanna see one store up there and then you're closing and we got an empty building down there.
right.
Is the West Norton store also yours?
The one in
Jeffersonville.
Jeffersonville, yeah, that's also my.
That's
store.
yours also?
Yes, yes, it's mine.
While you're there,
It's my
my,
parents, actually, I should.
while you're there, my other question bothers me is you used the word probably in your store hours. You said Dunkin' Donuts will probably close at 11, but could be open 24/7.
Right, for example, West Norriton is open 24/7, and the store you mentioned on Egypt and Trooper Road, that's closed at around 10 o'clock. It all is a business decision, but if the township feels that, we want to close the store down at a certain time, that's perfectly, something we comply with all township ordinances. We don't try to even argue that. The Wawa's open 24 hours. Maybe it'll make sense for us to stay open 24 hours. I'm not sure the answer to that question is. It's just a matter of how much business we have at that time of the day.
Well, Wawa's
And
across.
again, we do need to go through the land development
I
process.
understand that,
so-
Carl. I just asking
Right.
some questions while
Right.
we're here. It's
No problem.
almost the last of the year and, it's 2015 will be here shortly, so may as well get it all off my chest now while I can. I don't know if I'll be here next year. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
You're welcome. Bob, do you have any questions? I saw you writing there.
No, I'm just taking some notes, but I asked my questions earlier.
Did I ask too many?
You asked several of mine. Yeah, I had those all written down.
Sorry about that, Bob. That's why I'm sitting over this end. You throw a punch.
but we are sort of jumping around. Now, Mr. Santangelo, do you have any questions for the engineer?
Yes, I do.
Come on up and ask your questions.
Thank you, everybody. Anthony Santangelo, Santangelo. Hi, I've been here since 1975, and the Luke Oil is an eyesore. There's no question about it. Wawa has done a tremendous job. But what Wawa has created has been a logjam of cars from 7 to 9. Well, let me ask the engineer, is there any seating in the restaurant? Will there be any tables and chairs?
There will be seating in the restaurant, yes.
What is the percentage of drive-through and people walking in?
I don't know.
Mr. Patel?
It varies from store to store, but it could be about 60% drive-through to about 40% seating. But
Okay.
it varies, it could be 30, 70, depends on the store and location.
Okay. So, yes, Wawa's done a great job, but from 7 to 9 a.m., you cannot make a left. From 4 to 6, you cannot make a left on Trooper Road. What everybody's doing is, my nephew's home from college counted 54 cars this morning that made a right and then pulled in my parking lot and Luke Oil's parking lot and turned around and made a right to go down Trooper Road towards Chirac Corner, because you can't make a left. And I don't know if you know that a lot of people, and my nephew also counted 76 cars from Friday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. that cut through the restaurant, went by where his driving's going to be, out to Trooper Road, because Ridge Pike and Trooper were so backed up. 76 cars cut through and then went out to Trooper Road and made a right. I would like to see Dunkin' Donuts in there, but the drive-in window scares us. And also the drainage. All the drainage, and Mr. Graff is right, comes out down to Trooper Road. When Luke Oil had it, they were constantly out there salting because there was such an ice buildup in the wintertime. Also, it was contaminated. When Luke Oil bought it in 1990, they asked me to put 2 test wells on my property, the size of a dish plate. Up to 2 years ago, they were testing my well, which I allowed them to put on. It was not a recorded restriction. The deal was, I have an original, they have an original. I cannot find mine. I've called Luke Oil 4 times. The deal was, when they sold it, they would remove the metal plate covers over the test wells, only the size of a dish, dinner dish, and lowered the brass covering and then blacktop. So they're selling it to Mr. Patel and not even returning my phone calls. And I will find it eventually. But Tom, it was contaminated when Luke bought it from Mobile. And that's why they had to remove 1 tank. And how they found out was it was seeping under my property, Germantown title, across Trooper Road and down to Jeffersonville Golf Course. It was killing the grass. That's how we found out. Then when they bought it from Mobile, that's when they did the removal. But I'm for this project, except that you cannot get out of that, my property, and people from Oakdale can't even make a left all day long because of Wawa right now. Everybody comes down Oakdale Avenue, has to make a right, or they go up to 363 and make a right or the left. There's so much congestion right now that 1 car pulling out of Wawa can block the entire northbound, southbound to northbound, because they have to peek out on people going north on Trooper Road. So even though it's from 7 to 9 and from 4 to 6, in between those hours, lunchtime, Wawa does a heck of a business. There should be no left turn at all. But the Asian restaurant, they're cutting through that restaurant, going to your property, just to beat the intersection. I mean, 76 cars from 7 to 6 on last Friday that they cut through. And now they're cutting into my parking lot, and I was telling Mr. Graff and Carl that we want to put up a chain. Now, as some of you know, my attorney is Fred Wentz. So Fred Wentz is looking into it if I can put up a chain up until we open at 9. Or put up something else. Now, we're not going to put the chain up at night. But in the morning, they're all turning around. So why can't we make the drive-in window out to Ridge Pike and then make a right? But my exit from Germantown Title is only 15 feet away from their drive-in window. When Luke Oil was there, if you go out Trooper Road, you look left at the light. You don't look right. So people don't even see people from Oakdale or Germantown Title ingressing or regressing because they look left. There's been so many close calls close calls at that intersection from Oakdale and from Germantown Title. So I really would like to see Dunkin' Donuts go in there and make it something nice for the township. I mean, Nancy, you lived in this township longer than I have. Kathy, so have you. So, you know, it's just an eyesore. But
Just a traffic issue from your perspective. That's what you're concerned
it
about.
is, you know, for the safety, the health, and the welfare of people from Oakdale and Germantown Title. You know, this is going to be so much traffic. The weather conditions are unbelievable in the wintertime because everything flows down the Trooper Road. The low spot is the graph. I mean, yeah, and people cutting through and not even using your business is just unbelievable. So it's the traffic conditions, yes. I am concerned about the traffic that was so close in driveways that if you've been ever through Dunkin' Donuts, I go to Jeffersonville all the time, by the way. Yeah, you don't have that problem.
But, and I don't mean to cut you off, but isn't that really something that should be handled at the land development plan time as opposed to the zoning time for this particular impervious surface issue?
You might be correct, because I've never been on the zoning hearing board before, even though I've attended quite a few meetings, so I don't know when is the correct time.
No,
To do
now's
this.
as good as any time as any for us
Yes.
to hear your concerns. The question is, I think you're going to get more traction, if you will, at the land development time as opposed to this, because we don't really decide traffic issues.
Okay,
We just decide whether there's enough impervious coverage or not, and that's the
will I
issue.
be able to speak at the land development?
Sure.
Okay. That's
Tony,
good
can
enough.
I ask you a question? You don't have access to the Oakdale, do you?
Oh, yes, if I make a right, that's how I
No,
go
I mean
home.
in the back of your property. No.
No.
I know there's a garage back there, and there's another house on side of you,
Yes.
but you don't access it at all.
When me and my entire staff,
Yeah,
we can't make a left. There's so much
Okay.
traffic. So what we do is we make a right, then make a right, you know,
Right.
20 yards down and go up to Oakdale and then take 363 and I go right across. So my staff makes a right to go to Norristown or LP, but we cannot make a left coming out of my driveway. And the people in Oakdale, since Wawa has opened, I mean, in the morning, traffic is backed up in Oakdale because they cannot make a left. One person makes a left, everybody else is screwed. So people behind them
Well,
will too.
I come down the ridge every morning at 7:30, but I come straight down, I don't have to turn off.
Mm-hmm.
So I avoid some of that.
Oh,
But
yeah?
I know you get people that pull in Wawa and they go 2 miles
Well,
an hour.
it must have increased
Yeah.
the number of cars
Yeah.
phenomenally, because everybody's going to
Right.
the Wawa now.
Correct. And everybody cuts through the restaurant to
To get
avoid
there.
that congestion. And they're going to use Mr. Patel's property, you know, to do that. I don't know if he's aware of that,
Yeah.
but he'll be amazed how much traffic doesn't utilize his business and people just cutting through.
But they won't be able to cut through from Trooper, will they? If, in fact, that's one way.
That is correct.
So that might actually slow
They're
down that to
cutting
some
through
degree,
to
although
avoid
that
the
it won't
traffic.
stop them from pulling in and turning around, that's true.
That is correct. Right now, they are
Yeah.
going, if you go up Trooper north, they are cutting through right now behind Luke Oil and then exiting through the restaurant and then making a left up the Rich Pike because they don't want to sit at that light because that green arrow is only there for about 30 seconds. So, yeah, people will even come up the other way if there's no cars coming just to cut through. So the traffic is just
And Mr. Santangelo, I would encourage you not to just wait for the land development phase of this, but I think that you ought to be talking to the township traffic people already. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, that's what they're there for, is to listen to residents' complaints to try and get those things resolved. So I would suggest that you do that as well. Go ahead, Mike, I'm sorry.
The one comment I would make is that, well, two. First of all, as was correctly pointed out, this hasn't gone into land development yet, so there's a lot more to be done in terms of studying this. And secondly, Ridge and Trooper are both state roads.
Yes.
So a lot of this has got to still go through PennDOT, and they're gonna really be making a lot, if not all of
The
the
decisions.
determinations about how that actually works. So there's a long way to go in terms of these issues. Not that you're concerned, you don't want to devalue your concerns, but, you know, there's a lot to be done here with people who aren't in this room, so.
Well, it's going to, not to harp on the same subject or be redundant, but it's going to hurt Mr. Patel's business from that drive-in, which he has, when people cutting through the restaurant and going through his property, you know, to make a right on Trooper Road. So you have people cutting through from the restaurant, coming down Ridge Pike, and then you're going to have his own clients trying to get through. So you have to be careful that some of your clients just give up because traffic is so hard to get in and out. But 76 cars from 7 to 6 is quite a few number of cars that cut through during the day. So that's what my concern is. But
Yeah, but he's hoping they're gonna stop and park and go in and they're gonna buy
That's
donuts.
He'll be out
yeah,
there
that might happen.
coffee.
That, you know, that's a good theory. That just might happen. So yes, it'll slow it down. But it definitely.
No, those are all valid points and
Yes,
concerns,
I mean,
for sure.
And it would only help my value of the property
If
by
he's
him
there.
coming in. I
Sure.
mean, it's such an eyesore that it has devaluated a Germantown title. You know, I've been there since 1975. Now my daughter, you know, has taken over the business, and you know, I still get involved with the library and donations and things like that. I mean, I love this township. You know, my kids grew up here.
And you sat up here, too.
Yes, I did. That's why it's the first time I'm back in 30 years. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to, especially with Nancy. She might correct me by saying
But you know, maybe when that gets developed, it's very vacant looking right now.
Yes.
Those people going through
May not be the same.
may not, right. And if it was a problem, I don't know why you couldn't chain off your driveway whenever you wanted, it's your driveway.
Well, don't tell them that.
I'd chain it at night, too, Tony.
Yeah. No, but
Well,
I'll be-
I'm afraid of getting sued because there's no
Right.
light there. They might not see the chain, so I'm afraid of the
Put
liability.
some, put some red and white stripes on the chain.
Yeah,
Darn
but we're
lawyers.
definitely going to do something because everybody turning around
Christmas time.
is hurting when I do settlements. And you have, you know, you can have 8, 9, 10 people in different cars doing settlements, and they're turning around.
well, what's there now has been there how many years? 7, 8, 9?
The gas station,
Empty, sitting there.
that
probably
many?
last,
I don't know,
since
it's-
2011.
I thought it was longer than that.
Four.
It seemed
It's
like
about
it was
right.
longer
Yeah,
than that.
3 or 4
No,
years.
it's been
I
empty.
mean,
He's lived next to it all the time, he
That's
knows.
just not a nice entrance. When, you know, we get all hyped up about having welcome to Lower Providence. Well, that's not a nice welcome.
No, it's not, Nancy. I
As it-
totally agree with you
Right.
100%.
And you've always kept your property really nice and it looked good, but, it's our township. On the other side is West Norton. They've developed all along there. I mean, the jobs are there, the tax money's there. We just can't afford to have empty businesses.
I totally agree.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know.
And I never saw it shrubbed.
No,
I mean,
They
that,
didn't do
that would
anything.
be an improvement in itself. But, I think, you know, you guys have to work together and
I mean,
work
I would,
that
I really
out,
like
but-
to see Mr. Patel come in
Yeah.
there, you know, and make Lower Providence a nice
Right.
place to ingress and egress.
And that drainage is a problem, because
Big time.
you know, when I go to work and I go there, that's
Yes.
a real problem.
I mean, it's
This
a shame-
last winter was really bad there.
Yes. I mean, it's a shame Wawa went to West
Yeah.
Norton instead of
I
Lower
know.
Providence.
Well, what are you gonna
And
do?
It was close. It was a
Yeah.
close call, because I was dealing with Wawa.
Yeah.
But West Norton just made them too many offers. They couldn't say no.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Another member of the gallery would like to have some,
What?
oh, sorry. You have questions for,
Yes, I have questions concerning particularly the request for variance for, or an exception for the impervious surface
Great. Can you
requirement.
introduce yourself
My
to
name
us?
is Preston Lutweiler. I live at 752 Mockingbird Lane. I've lived in the township for 29 years. I'm Luitweiler. I am also a civil engineer, a professional engineer. I'm retired. I have been active in the Perkiomen Watershed Conservancy and very interested in stormwater management issues in this township and in all of the Perkiomen watershed and the Schuylkill watershed in general. It's my understanding that the purpose of impervious surface requirements is to limit runoff in runoff events. And it's a little unfortunate that you don't have the benefit of the stormwater management plan for this site in front of you. What they're asking for, if in fact they're entitled to up to 70% impervious, and they're only looking for an exception of 3%, is a relatively small amount. But it seems that that could be accomplished, as Joyce had suggested, by something like impervious pavement or an infiltration bed or something to try to infiltrate some of the stormwater for what would amount to 3% of the coverage here, particularly where you have that road that's coming down from the restaurant. There's runoff that comes down that impervious surface. If some of that could be captured and infiltrated, you could do actually much more good on this site than you would have if you had more pervious surface. So the unfortunate thing is, if the groundwater is contaminated, you don't want to infiltrate that surface water. So it sounds to me like there's a lot of balls up in the air here, but one of the things that you might consider doing this evening is making any approval contingent on land development, looking at pervious pavement, groundwater infiltration, or an underground storage facility. They missed the opportunity to use the space of those tanks to capture some of the runoff water and then release it slowly. That would have been something that could have been done with the excavations that those tanks came out of. When the engineer suggests that we are in an area where geologically the ground is impervious, that's true, but this is made ground here. Those tanks are usually put in pea gravel. I would suggest that that land under there is probably very pervious now. And you have an opportunity for infiltration unless there is groundwater contamination, in which case you wouldn't want that. So you could suggest that the supervisors or whoever looks at the ultimate land development look at the stormwater management and ask the applicant to try to accomplish what would have been accomplished with 3% more pervious property with some other engineering solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the witness?
No, I'll address his comment if I close it.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Michael. I feel like a teacher.
I actually am following up on the last gentleman's comments. We have a similar project that we had recently looked at, in which the applicant has suggested that they would be willing to add some filters to the inlets, stouts, because not only is the quantity of water of concern, but the quality of water, and so that we'd ask the applicant and this board, because it's perhaps making it a condition to look at some sort of BMPs that would be available to, while we're not reducing the quantity of water because of the impervious coverage, we are perhaps improving the quality through some sort of engineering technique.
Let me just address that, because I just want to make it clear, we're somewhat mixing apples and oranges here. This property does have to go through land development, and it does have to meet all the stormwater requirements of the township during the land development process. There's a difference between getting relief for impervious coverage and getting relief from stormwater requirements. As you've heard, we have a certain amount of paving that is required on this site to meet the width of the drive aisles, to meet the number of parking spaces, to generally allow this use to comply with all other zoning requirements. That's impervious coverage. How we handle stormwater is something that's going to be reviewed during the land development process, and the whole idea of BMPs and infiltration and all of that is part of the stormwater process, which will certainly be addressed during the land development process. So they're really two different animals. One is the amount of coverage you have on the ground, the other is how you handle the stormwater on the property.
I hear you, Carl, but I think, and Mr. Lutow, is that how you say your last name? Lutweiler, I'm sorry. He also raises a valid point, which is if the whole point of impervious surface is to talk about the water runoff and where it's going to go, then you need some of that information in order to make a decision about the pervious coverage aspect of things, technically speaking. Now, if that's going to be addressed in the stormwater management plan,
It has to be addressed.
then it may be a non-issue if the water is ultimately being dealt with in a way that's going to address the fact that now you're over by 3%. I suspect that would be the case in any event, but I don't know that for sure. And I don't know that necessarily we would get involved in applying conditions.
As Ralph mentioned earlier, even something like pervious paving, whatever, is still considered under the ordinance as impervious coverage. So we're not talking about coming up with ways to get the water to percolate into the ground. That's something part of stormwater. We're talking about an impervious coverage that is a function of your zoning ordinance, how that is calculated. So we have what we have. How we resolve that is something that can be dealt with through the land development process.
Questions that anybody has?
It still bothers me about that Chinese restaurant.
Right, and I also just want to reiterate, there is an existing site of 95% coverage. So whatever stormwater conditions are out there today will certainly be greatly improved just by virtue of the fact of reducing impervious coverage by over 20%, which is a very significant reduction in impervious coverage, and putting landscaping on this site, which doesn't exist now and will certainly absorb stormwater. So, just looking on the face of it, what we are doing here is going to be a significant improvement over existing conditions.
Carl, the other board members were mentioning that right there, cut through. Personally, if I owned that Chinese restaurant, I'd have bullards up there right away. I wouldn't want somebody cutting through my property to do a cut through. Does the present owner or Mr. Patel plan on blocking that off?
That, again, Tom, that's something that we'll be discussing in land development.
I understand that,
This is an
Carl.
existing condition, so that's...
I understand that, but a lot of our boards don't converse with one another. And, if I can get the answers myself, then I don't have to go to the planning commission, I don't have to go to the other meetings to find out what's going on. I'll get it right from the horse's mouth. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
at this point, there has been no
Yeah.
discussion. It's really, we're at the inception of this process.
All right.
We've gotten, the township has given the text amendment to allow the drive-through. We've gotten the conditional use approval, in which a number of these issues were discussed from the township. So now we're here for the zoning purely on the issue of the
All right,
impervious.
but if that's an issue right now, then I guess the police department can handle that issue. Thank you.
Other questions?
So, Bob?
Before we make a motion.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, any other evidence that you want to present? Mr. Santangelo, you raised your hand?
Yes, one more thing. I talked to the people last week who own the Asian restaurant. They just sold it. And they told me that they have a right of way, which is recorded, allowing people to.
Well, that's what Mr. Graff, I think, testified to, right?
Testified to
Yeah.
that.
Right.
It's of record that it exists that way.
Right.
They can't block it off.
Why wasn't that said? I didn't have to ask the question.
They sold it.
Huh?
First, she just said they sold it. She didn't know they sold
I know
it.
that. Why won't that happen? I'm gonna have to have
That has nothing to do with us, though.
Unless you can help me. I pointed it many times, I guess, to block it off.
Okay, that,
No questions of the board?
no. Do we
Carl, your turn. I mean, do you want to finish up?
Again, just to reiterate some of the evidence that the board has heard, this is proposed reuse of the property. Overall, we're taking an existing eyesore. We are bettering the use of this property in several respects. not the least of which are reducing curb cuts, which will address some of the traffic issues that we've heard about, even though it's not directly relevant to our application. There will be landscaping there that is not there now. There will be over 20% reduction in impervious coverage. There will be stormwater controls that are not there now. So overall, this is quite an improvement for the community on this property. There are physical constraints on this property, given its size, given the fact that it is a corner site, given the fact that it is going to be losing some significant amount of ground to the ultimate right-of-way, which also plays into the calculation of impervious coverage. Based on all those factors, we have truly established the hardship with respect to this property. Given the intent to comply with the ordinance as we are truly asking for the minimum variance to afford relief with respect to the issue of impervious coverage, understanding that all issues with respect to stormwater control will be subject to land development. And for purposes of impervious coverage itself, there will be no adverse impact on surrounding properties. We are improving existing conditions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone from the audience who wants to have any closing remarks?
I'm gonna take a break for this.
You're the boss.
We're gonna,
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to make a motion that we briefly meet in the room in executive session to discuss this matter,
okay,
and then reconvene.
okay.
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor for taking a break? And then we'll reconvene? Aye.
Aye.
Was that yes, Tom? She couldn't hear you. Yes. Kathy, did you vote?
Yes, she
Okay.
said.
All right. We'll take a short
We'll
break.
take a short break.
Where's my paper? Okay, the meeting
You gotta watch him.
Oh, I forget. See?
Go ahead.
Okay, the meeting reconvenes at 8:25. Okay, Mr. Solicitor, are we ready to make a decision on this board?
Michael, you hot back there?
There he is. He's okay.
He's hot, he's good.
Okay.
Yeah, he waves.
Madam Chairwoman, I would like to make a motion.
Okay. Attention, everyone.
I move that we approve the application and grant the variance as requested to allow an impervious coverage of approximately 73.5% or less, with the condition that the applicant fulfills the requirements of section 143-262E, subparagraphs 1, 3, and 4.
You got a
Okay.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Me.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much. Thank
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for answering all the questions.
Yeah,
It was fun.
it was fun.
Well, you're the only one that's ever said that.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, you
you
too.
very
Happy
much.
holidays. Thanks.
Good luck.
Merry
Yes.
Christmas.
Stay there. Mike, stay there.
He- Did
Thank
he-
you.
did he say?
Madam
he had-
Chairperson,
What?
don't close yet.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is Mrs. McFarland's last meeting, and I want to thank her personally. As much as I sat with this lady on boards of supervisors and zoning boards, for an outstanding job in giving up so much time of her time to the Township of Lower Providence Township. Nance, thank you very much. From
Thank
this
you.
guy, from this old fart to you, congratulations.
I would second that. No one who has not sat up here on the zoning board can have any understanding of the time and commitment and dedication that goes into this job. And Nancy, as our chairman, is always willing to answer questions, answer phone calls, goes the extra mile, and we are going to miss her. She won't miss us as much as we're going to miss her, but I thank her so much for her service.
Thank you. Well, it was my pleasure to be a supervisor here for 20 years.
I know.
I did a lot of volunteer work here, and when I made Lower Providence my home, I made it my home. And what do you do at home? You take care of everything. And it's been great. I loved meeting all the people. We did lots of things. I'm so proud that we have a library, and we don't have a lot of things that we did have. I will miss being involved in the board. It was keeping me from getting Alzheimer's, I think. But on a serious side, as a supervisor, it's hard work, it's a lot of hours, and a lot of decisions you make, and and you do them, and you hope you did the right thing. As a zoner, it's a whole different thing. You want to help them, you don't want to hurt anybody, you want to follow the rules, and it's like trying to keep in the lanes. The most important thing for me in it was, if you were coming to us, that means your project wasn't quite right. And the most important thing to me was, for the township and mostly the people that would be affected around you, it had to be right for them. And that's what I always thought about. Would I want that? And, that's what kept me doing the job. And I love it, but I have 17 grandchildren and not enough arms. And there's too much time that I have to take to be with them too. So I want to thank Lower Providence for what they did for me.
Here, here.
And Merry Christmas.
Nice job. Merry Christmas.
No,
Okay, do
wait
I
a
hear-
minute before you shut the board.
He's not going to give
I got
up.
another announcement. The guy that's sitting here in the blue suit next to us, today's his birthday.
Yeah, that's right.
And
How
I'd
old,
like to,
62?
he's 85
I'm looking
years old
good for
today.
62.
85, right? And then the next thing I'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, is with all the stuff that's going on TV today,
Yeah.
and what I would like to do, we have one of the finest in Montgomery County downstairs in our Lower Province Police Department. So this is directed to anybody that's watching this on TV. If you see one of our police officers, tell them how much you appreciate them. Just wave to them, blink your lights at them, but let them know he's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're here.
Okay.
Motion?
Now, do we have a
Yeah, I
motion
make
to
a
close?
motion that you adjourn the meeting.
You guys,
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. And girls, thank you very much for doing such a great job.
Yes,
And
Deb,
Michael?
thank you. Deb, we love those
in
notes.
front of you, Merry Christmas.
And
Great
yes, great job.
Take it home, Merry Christmas.
And Mike,
Paula, thank you for enduring all of us.
You say that? Thank you, Tom.
you know what, Mike? I'm just going to call you to torture you once in
You
a
got
while.
a present,
Where did I get that?
Tom, for all of us.
Thank you, Michael.
Tom, did you buy me a present?
Merry Christmas.
It's not my birthday.
Hey, that's yours.
Uh-oh, this isn't a bottle of wine, I know that. Nope. It's
This
shaped
is nice.
It's underneath that. Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, it should be around.
We are too.
I think we're gonna get rid of her.
Give me a,
What, I only see you at the polls? Will you still be at the polls?
oh, yeah.